Hello and welcome to another episode of Digital Marketing Answered. I'm really happy to be joined by Yuwon Song. Yuwon is Sales Director and Head of Business Development at Symanto, and she's a seasoned professional in the field of artificial intelligence and personalised customer interactions. With a background in communication and market insights, she drives the innovations at Symanto, helping develop AI-driven solutions. So Yuwon enhances customer engagement by leveraging technology for a tailored, scalable, automated interactions, and her career highlights include pioneering projects that bridge the gap between AI capabilities and human intervention. So it addresses critical challenges in privacy, ethics, and optimal integration in AI in business operations. So there's quite a lot going on there, and we love a bit of AI and technology here at Innovation Visual and Digital Marketing Answered. So welcome you on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having us. I'm very happy to be here. Let's see what we can talk about.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I think it would be great actually before we sort of start diving into the Symanto and the AI excitement. Can you just tell us a little bit about your professional journey, about how you got here?
Sure. Well, actually, I am not, I haven't been actually, let's say. I wasn't an AI specialist in the past. So I started my career actually in market research as a market insights consultant. And I worked in a market research company for about 6 years, where I've been leading actually a project in traditional market research. And in my 6th year, I realized this is not exactly how the world works the same way like as it used to be. In the past, I think market research was the go-to, the traditional market research was the go-to to understand people, to understand what is going on in the market and everything. But then slowly new technologies were picking up back then already. So I kind of shifted my career then to AI-driven market research, AI-driven research, and joined Symanto. That's been already 10 years ago. I never left
Wow.
Symanto since then. So it was just fastly developing and getting more and more exciting. So since I joined Symanto, my role was actually how can we bridge the gap between like AI research, using AI, applying AI in businesses, and how can we make businesses to understand and use it in a correct way, having it more in a meaningful manner. Because one of the biggest things, and we will get there probably later at one point in our conversation, is
Yeah.
everybody wants to use AI, but not everybody has the meaningful usage of it found and identified.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the area what I'm looking after at Symanto.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. So 10 years at Symanto. I think it'd be great if you can tell those people listening a little bit about Symanto because they may not have heard of such a innovative company.
That's true. I mean, we are. I always say we're a scale up. So we're not anymore a startup because we've been founded in 2010, and we've been founded in 2010 in Germany, Nuremberg. So it's not a very common way of starting an AI company in Nuremberg in Germany. But since 2010, we've been operating in the area of, and now everybody knows, funnily, language AI. So what ChatGPT just brought out, in a sense, that is kind of a similar field where we've been operating since 2010. And the most interesting part of what we've been doing is actually we have a language AI. We've built native language AI, meaning we are building, developing AI as well,
Okay.
but in the combination with psychology and all the other business intelligence. So let's call it this way. Our AI is actually
Yeah.
having language in the core to understand people, to understand the market dynamics, to understand everything around that through language, and then to apply that in businesses using all the other different data points. And
Yeah.
then that means to have a deep understanding, being able to predict people's behavior as well, being able to predict market trends as well, and
Yeah.
really collecting all different type of data points, applying that with the right AI models, and getting meaningful insights out of it. That is what we've been doing at Symanto.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to unpack in there. So starting at the core, you have your own AI technology. So for clarity, because I think a lot of people now are thinking, oh, AI powered, it just means somebody's plugged a bit of chat GPT in the background somewhere. But this is all actually your proprietary AI technology. And you were talking about coming out of a market research background. So, what was kind of the founding sort of principle or the core? Why did Symanto get created, if you like?
Yeah, that's also a very interesting story indeed, because the founder of Symanto, he is also current CEO, Halik. He himself also has a market research background, but in prior to that, actually even more interesting background, which is in forensic psychology. So he was one of the first profilers in the UK, profiling psychopath about how is the pattern in their language when they describe things, when they express something, how can we find their forensic clues or psychological forensic clues in that case. And that idea then one big market research company in Nuremberg, everybody knows if they've been in market research, wanted to take that over into consumer profiling. So they headhunted Halik to Germany, to Nuremberg, so that he
Wow.
then starts building up that consumer profiling tool. And funnily, like in traditional market research, the idea back then from the company was, let's do it in a manual coding way, so that somebody sits down, analyzes the interview transcripts, for example, to understand the
Yeah.
clues. But then Halik thought, these are language patterns. Why do we have to do it manually? Can't we automatize patterns when we have enough data? So that's why then he left. Actually, we have a bunch of people in different areas. So in linguistics, in market research, in psychology, computer science. So in a combination of these fields. And we've been building the tool, the AI, that can then automatically detect psychological clues out of the text.
Wow. Okay. So the founder used to profile psychopaths using language, and then that has grown and developed in terms of the principles behind that into
Correct.
actually then sort of helping businesses and organizations understand behaviors. So we're talking about taking kind of segmentation of people almost to another level, where we're not saying, you fall into demographic or geographical or wealth sort of bandings or whatever. We're talking about actually now people being segmented by behavioral traits that are uncovered by their language. Is that right?
That's correct. I think that's a very good summarization of that. Because at the end of the day, if we think about the demographic approach of segmentation, we all know the limitations, or we all feel the limitation. Especially if you think about, it's very difficult nowadays when world is changing so fast with all the technology, with social media and everything what's out there. A very concrete example, sorry, like example would be Gen Z. Gen Z
Yeah.
says something, does something differently. So, for example, Gen Z always has been saying that environmental friendly and being like society, I mean, social and so on, all these ESG aspects are very important in their purchasing criteria for
Yeah.
decision making, looking for a brand, buying a brand. But then after they said all those things in a survey, actually the I think one of the most successful brands in 2023 was the fashion brand, the fast fashion brand Shein,
Right.
which is a huge like discrepancy between like what Gen Z has said and has been doing. So it's kind of, that's kind of, I think, the reason why we believe we should stop looking only, I think that's also important, only into demographic segmentation, which is also needed. However,
Yeah.
understanding what motivates people, what drives people in their behavior, which is much deeper than a socio-demographic segmentation, is
Yeah.
the key in our opinion to unlock really, or to understand consumer behavior.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm completely with you on that. I mean, I'm convinced on it. For those people listening, you talked about having to use data to do this, and I'm sure what you've just said, people are going, okay, well that sounds really good, Yuan, but how can you actually do it? So how does it practically work? What are you analyzing to be able to understand this?
Sure. We at Symanto we have directly we have our platform connected to more than 2,000 online resources, like online sources, which are partially they're publicly available, like, like those Twitter APIs or Facebook APIs and so on. Or, for example, we have like dedicated partnerships for some closed platforms. And it's very, very important to follow those kind of, I would say, those partnerships as well, because not every data source online is just accessible through an open API, for example. So that is one of the things we've been working on for many, many years, to have a great pool of data sources that includes not only social media, but also forums or blogs or like review sets, e-commerce reviews, for example, or also like kind of like ESG reports. So it's not only about written text by users, but also by written text in a formal way. Or news, for example, is another source where we get many insights out of it. And plus, our clients have the possibility to add their own CRM data, their own, for example, call center transcripts, and so on into the system as well, so that you really have a holistic data set around that. The external data helps us actually in the very first step to understand the consumer landscape, your competitor landscape, and everything. And then we can merge that together with the internal data of clients, where we
Yeah.
can then predict, like for each single entry of the customer, to say, with a certain probability, probably Tim belongs to this kind of psychological segment or this behavior segment, and so
Yeah.
forth, so that you then have a profiled, or let's say like profiling has a negative connotation these days. So
Yes.
it's a segmented view of your
So,
CRM system as well.
yeah. Wow. Okay. So not only can you go out into like with 2,000 external data sources and effectively plug into those data sources and extract written content that you can then analyze. So things like review platforms, social media, and things like that. So you get this wonderful view of markets and kind of how people are interacting in certain areas. But what you're saying is you can actually then also take the interactions that customers or prospective customers have had with a brand, with a business, which are held then in the CRM. So whether that be call notes or whether transcripts or whether that actually be those things out call centers or even emails, and you can analyze that, and then you can say Tim belongs in this kind of segment rather than this kind of segments. That's possible.
Yes, correct. I think a very concrete example is we've done this exercise exactly with Adidas in the past.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
fashion brand or the sports brand, and there we
yeah,
actually had a very interesting finding. So it makes it very like more like understandable how this works. So first of
yeah,
all, what we've done at Adidas is the question was actually like, how can we understand Adidas football wear better? So what motivates them? How can we do better in that segment, in that product
yeah,
segment? What we've done is to first look in the external data source everywhere where people talk about football products. So it's not only about Adidas, but also including all their competitors, for example. When people buy, when people talk, compare football related products like shoes, jerseys, and everything, that's where we then collected the data from. We're talking here about millions of comments that can be also filtered by data source, by different countries, or for example, in a time frame, we can look. We looked into from past until up to now, so that we can
yeah.
see what is trending, what is happening.
Wow.
First, using that data, then we segment it using our psychographics. So not only the psychographics, but first of all, the first layer is to understand what do people talk about. Obviously, it's kind of the easiest way to use actually language AI. What are the
Yeah,
main topics and what's the sentiment towards that? Then
yeah,
the psychographic segmentation to see what are the type of people behind that helps us actually to understand the different motivation of these consumers. There we found 7 different segments, and out of them, 2 were able to communicate because the other 5, they're still working on it. Adidas
right.
is still working on it. So the main 2, actually, what we can communicate is one segment was a more emotionally driven type of a consumer, saying like in a simple way, we called him Cristiano Ronaldo type of
Okay.
consumer. And now imagine Cristiano Ronaldo, who is actually a very self-driven person who wants to be the shiny one in the whole crowd, who is
Yeah.
always like interested in the most recent launches of products. We've seen that this Cristiano Ronaldo type of consumer segment did not have a clear loyalty towards a specific brand, but
Yeah.
a clear loyalty, always positive spikes into new product launches. So anything that was new, they
Yeah.
were very much interested in it and had a positive sentiment towards it. And we know also on which platforms to reach them. For example, in that case, Instagram was one of the most important platforms for this type of segment because there they were interacting a lot, comparing things, talking about things, and so on. So knowing exactly this type of one segment, then comparing to that, we had
Yeah.
another segment which was more, and now only maybe some older people might know Bastian Schweinsteiger, the German footballer. He was the other type of segment, was more this rational type of segment, more
Yeah.
team driven. It's not about myself, but it's every time when I buy a football related product, it needs to enhance my performance. I need to understand how the material, how the design of it is really enhancing my
Okay.
performance. So these are the kind of things these type of people were interested in. And
Yeah.
interestingly, they had a favorite brand always. So it's not about the new
Oh.
launches. They actually go for a specific brand, show high brand loyalty as well. And then when they argue or when they, for example, want to explain why they bought something, it always had a very logical explanation behind that. Why this material is good for being quicker, why this material is good that you don't sweat so much, and all those kind of things. And also knowing where to reach those type of segments, we had like a full picture of each of this type of segment, what they like, how you can attract them, what kind of language they use, and where to reach them. And
Yeah.
having that concept, Adidas moved it into a CRM system. So from every customer from whom they've got a consent like that they are allowed to analyze their reviews, their complaint,
Yeah.
and so on, we were able then to profile them, to segment them, to give them a label, one of those two segments we found.
Yeah.
Then Adidas sent out a newsletter to these two segments and actually three. So it was an ABC test to
Yeah.
see the adapted newsletter using exactly those topics which the Ronaldo type of segments were interested, using exactly those arguments and the shiny thing, new product launch, and so on. You will be the
Yeah.
shiny star compared to
Yeah.
the Bastian Schweinsteiger type. Very logical explanation of the materials, fact driven, talking
Yeah.
about how they can improve their performance versus a very generic one. And
Yeah.
it was kind of the ABC test in which then they've seen an uplift of more than 35% opening rates. And in the
Wow.
sales, which in which in the newsletter there was a sales button for a specific product. So they had
Yeah.
a 160% higher sales conversion for those where they adapted the language, where they adapted exactly the communication.
So 35% increase in open rate, but you're saying 160% increase in sales rate.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any marketing or sales leader listening to this that wouldn't fall off their chair if they could start running campaigns and improve their sales uplift by 160%. That's, it's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? That kind of level of numbers, because Adidas weren't doing things badly before, I think it's safe to say.
that's right. Yeah. Many of our clients can't or don't have enough data in their CRM system directly as well. So we have ways and solutions how to overcome that as well. If you understand already where I can find my segments, for example, we knew that Ronaldo type of segments are mostly on Instagram. I can already adapt my language on Instagram campaigns. And like
Fine.
that, I'm already reaching the right people on Instagram with the right message. And then
Yeah.
you can start building up that actually the more content you get and the more like databases you build, you will
Yeah.
have more and more a targeted strategy, which you can then build out, of course. Yeah.
That's really interesting, actually, what you say there about Instagram, because you not only understand the behavioral triggers and the way that they're thinking, but where they are compared with other segments. You're actually got this double benefit because it's helping you also engage with new people that aren't yet in your CRM. So you can't necessarily segment them, but you can draw them in the right way, because if they're on platform A rather than platform B, they're more likely to think in this way than the other way.
Correct. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, really interesting. And I mean, those numbers, we've got everybody's attention who's listening now. They're all like, this is brilliant. Okay. But you mentioned one thing within it, and I know that you guys are based in Germany, as you say, in Nuremberg. You mentioned consent, and you mentioned obviously by that fact privacy. We know that the Europeans are very strong on privacy. Um, Tell me a little bit about how Symanto works in order to be, because I know it is, fully compliant with all the things around privacy. So those people that might be going, oh, this is great, but we couldn't do that because it would be breaching privacy. So can you cast a little light on that for us?
Sure. I mean, you know that I'm doing also business development, and there the simplest answer is we are ISO 27001 certified. But what does that actually mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's the interesting part. So to do the work what we've described, especially in the external data source, we don't need any kind of like private personal information of people. So at the end of the day, we're always working in a segmented view. So we're actually really using just the language patterns, the topics which are in there and so on. And then secondly, of course, when it comes then to a CRM system, it's very, very important always to work with a consent. And you know already in the EU and in Germany especially, we have different layers of giving consent as well. So it needs to be in particular that it is a consent that I want to be targeted with personalized marketing experience as well. You need that consent, and we only work with that consent, of course, as well. And we help our clients to get that because obviously that is also a journey to get into this personalized marketing, to this personalized strategy in this case. And
yeah,
then, thirdly, very, very important, this is not exactly something to do with data privacy. There is some kind of, I would say, a fear of the generic public that AI can be dangerous and so on. So one of the most important things also for us is if anything is AI generated or telling them that we're using kind of an AI is kind of one more important fact in that case. So when getting the consent or for example, when doing the data analytics on top, especially with CM data, mentioning how it's being done, the clarity, the transparency, that is one thing where we help our clients to communicate it correctly.
yeah. Okay. It sounds like you're doing everything right in that area, and also you're very well informed to help your clients make sure that they understand how to get that consent, and having 27001, which is the data security thing, is obviously excellent, and people can understand that and the reliability of that. Now, obviously, I know you, and we work with Symanto because all of those amazing things that you've been talking about. There's Symanto does this analysis, but obviously you talked about the Adidas campaign. You don't actually do that, do you? It's you work with
No.
partners like us to help with that.
That's right. Yeah. So we believe we are very good in the analytics part. So we are very, I mean, in that case, I would say we are probably really the best analyzing, understanding the language and making it translatable into communication strategies. However, we are not the creative people. We are not the ones who understand fully the marketing landscape. So we actually end our work in understanding the things and giving the insights how to. And then the
Yeah,
translation into the operations, that's the part then where we, for example, Tim and I, so innovation visual team, and we actually then work together so that we can give the tailored insights and that they can be then operated.
yeah, yeah. Because it's taking that and actually utilizing those insights and keep using them to deliver the value, isn't it? You've created the value, but then we need to get the value out to the market.
That's right. A lot of clients always ask us if you can analyze it, so where can you help us in doing the translation of it as well? So how can we use it now? And in that case, we are always being very honest. We are not the creatives. A lot of companies, by the way, when it comes to copywriting these days, for example, there we can help a bit further because in the copywriting phase, for example, we can utilize some Gen AI tools, for example, as well, and so
Yeah,
forth. But really to do the right marketing, like targeting, for that, you need professionals who understand the landscape much better than us. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that's it's really interesting, and I think what can be done now is amazing. And the fact that this, because it can run on things like CRMs as well as external data sources, is just absolutely fantastic. I mean, you guys, as you say, you've been founded and you personally have been working there for more than 10 years. What do you see then as the future of how AI can enable this personalization?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it already briefly. It's the hyper personalization will go on and on, definitely. So it will be more and more about this hyper personalization. I personally, I mean, believe as well that personalization is a way to stay engaged with consumers, with customers. Because I think a recent study also, I forgot where I've read it, but a recent study did a survey on personalization as well and found out that more than 70% of Gen Z mentioned actually that a personalized experience made them to purchase from a specific brand.
Yeah,
So personalization is still very important, especially nowadays we know that our data is being used somehow everywhere. In that case, I would prefer in exchange to my data that I at least get the personalized experience for that and a very great personalized experience. Now
yeah,
with the AI for the next 5 years, what is going to happen is this personalization will go to this next level of hyper personalization. So not just the content, what is being given, but even the products, even the entire brand experience. When I go to a website of a brand, I believe that that is all going to change, very personalized to me, tailored to me. So it's not anymore just standing on the communication level. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm right with you on that. I think that it's strange how so many companies are not doing any personalization yet at a web level. They think that, adding first name and a job title in an email is personalization, and it's really not that anymore. And I love your example about the sales uplift when people do actually have a personalized experience. And I think it's becoming the norm from the large tech companies. If you look at the likes of Netflix and Amazon, anybody using those platforms have a absolutely personalized experience in terms of what they see. And I think that people are happy with that. I mean, those companies are their numbers, their metrics show that
They prove it.
consumers are happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that vision. I love that vision of hyper personalization as well. And I think this also, it fits with what we've been talking about on Digital Marketing Answered and Innovation Visual about technology is such a definer now in terms of competitive advantage that if you're not embracing technology like the Symanto technology and other technology tools, you're getting left behind. It's not a matter of these are luxury items, is it? I think Symanto almost could become oh, do you not use it? Almost it would be a surprise that you haven't done that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just spoke my vision right now, right? So by leaving the business development and the commercial part, I would say like this is kind of one thing I believe to become that everybody uses Symanto in one area at least, because it could be in the understanding part that I really want to understand my customers or my potential customers the best, or
Yeah,
in the other area by how do I communicate with them? So what kind of wordings, what kind of tonality do I have to use in order to be heard by these people? There
yeah,
must be, I believe, always one area where it fits, because at the end of the day, everybody of us who is in business, we work with people, we work through communication, and language is, in my opinion, also the core of everything what we do. So I
yeah.
believe there is a space for Samantha in every business. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing is emotions are such a better driver of moving people, of persuasion, than just like, oh, data points. They're in this age group, this demographic, or whatever it might be. I think that if you engage on an emotional level with the brand, then it's so much more powerful because feelings, isn't it? We're about persuasion as marketeers, and feelings really influence that.
Correct. And if you think about also majorly these days, the quality of the products, the quality of the offerings, what you get is getting more and more very similar. I think one other very good example from our clients is JBL, which is the audio manufacturer, so headphones, headsets, and Bluetooth speakers, for example. And there, we've been working with them for more than 8 years now as well. And one of the things is obviously when it comes to Bluetooth speakers or like headphones or wireless headphones, in the past they had a different quality. It's true that some brands had a lower quality than the other ones, but nowadays none of the consumers expects to be a proper branded like headphone to be worse than another one. They
Yeah.
might have different kind of benefits, different kind of advantages. However, every headphone, every Bluetooth speaker must work. Connectivity issues cannot happen anymore because we don't live in a world where we think my Bluetooth speaker is not going to connect to my phone. You cannot
Yeah.
expect that from a brand anymore, or you don't expect it at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what is the lever then? What really drives a brand differently? How can a brand differentiate themselves from another? Is
Yeah.
indeed that emotion part. Emotion part. So, understanding what kind of emotion does a specific brand can drive or
Yeah.
trigger into consumers. And that is, I believe, also the way how we then build brand loyalty, obviously, because it's not, I love, for example, like I use a Samsung phone, and it's not because Samsung phones work the best. It's not. It's just more, I have kind of an emotional like connection to that, not just because I'm a Korean, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's kind of that emotional connection, feeling comfortable, understanding that there are different things there. So it's more like this kind of a comfort, I would say, and the emotion
Yeah.
of like there is something nice about it, which makes me
Yeah.
against Apple, for example, as well. And that
Yeah.
emotion to understand it and to use it in marketing, I think that's very key to grow also brand loyalty.
Yeah, and yeah, you're touching on something which is again another favorite subject of mine, which is about the importance of brand, particularly in the digital space. As you know, you've got to cut through noise, and you've got to actually get people to embrace and your content resonate. It's about building that brand, because the landscape is changing dramatically. Um, I mean, I could talk to you all day on these things, but we can't go on forever. But I mean, honestly, if the marketing and revenue leaders haven't got excited, if they skipped over the bit where you said about 160% sales uplift on a single campaign, they need to rewind to that bit. But you're the person actually that if they want to engage with Symanto, you're the person to for them to talk to. So how could people who are listening to Digital Marketing Answered get in touch with you?
Sure. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. Indeed, I tried it. When you look for Yuwon Song, and song is like singing a song in English. So if you look for me, you will find me. Please connect, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit more cases around your specific industry or your specific situation, for example, because as I said at the very start, I believe it's more about finding the right use case, a meaningful use case for each business. I know everybody wants to use AI, but
Yeah.
there are areas where you can see a very quick uplift. There are areas where it takes longer. And we are more than happy to help you to find that right route into that.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And obviously, we'll put your LinkedIn profile link and the link to the Symanto website in the show notes on all the different platforms so people can connect there. Um, Really interesting talking to you as always. Thank you very much for sparing the time to come on Digital Marketing Answered.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim. And I'm very happy to see how it comes out now as well. And let's see like what else we can do great things together.
Indeed, indeed. And thank you also to all of those people that have been watching and listening on all the various different platforms. Please do comment so that we get your feedback and any ideas for future episodes. And obviously, do all the great things like, subscribe, and review us on the different platforms. It does mean a lot to us and it helps other people discover Digital Marketing Answered. So until next time, Yuwon, thank you very much, and see you again.
See you soon. Thank you.